Okay, here we are. Sunglasses on or off?
It's up to you.
Okay, cool. Hey everybody, Matthew Olmican here for Short Lane Ag Supply, and I'm accompanied by my good friend Jason Cavadini at the UW Marshfield Ag Research Station. Did I say that right?
Yep.
Mars,
Yep.
as they call it, and we're a couple of agronomists outstanding in their field.
That's so lame.
You know, I felt dirty saying that.
And I'm pretty sure everyone's heard it too many times. So
Yeah, sorry everyone. But all kidding aside, we're out here standing in a winter cereal rye field, or just winter rye field.
rye.
This was no-tilled in after corn silage was taken off, and this actually got a manure application over the top. Not worked in, but it broadcasted over the top, and this was planted at 125 pounds to the acre. Now the aspirations of this field specifically is going to be no-till, beans into it, and either take it for forage before or after. Now this is why I brought you out here, Jason, to tell all the viewers there's a lot of people that are having massive success with their small grains, whether spring or especially with winter, being established, showing great growth. What are some of the things that people can do with those fields to take them to the next level?
So I think sort of what you're referring to is a lot of people. What's up with your zoo animals here?
I have guinea hens.
And they
We'll see how this, yeah.
And they like winter rye apparently.
There's lots of bugs out here.
So anyway, so it seems like this year there's a lot more winter small grains on the land than there have been in previous years, and I think there's two main reasons for that. One of them is we had a good growing season last year, which gave us plenty of time to get cover crops in the fall, and the other reason is we had a good winter, and so everything overwintered and came through looking really good compared to in the past. That said, everything started out really well, like in March, and then we had a whole month of cold weather. So a week ago, we looked at this field because this particular farmer was sort of on the fence about what he wanted to do with this field. And it was very borderline. It was one where you could have gone one way or another. So basically, when you're making decisions on how to make the best use of this crop in the spring, you're deciding whether you're going to keep it on the land and terminate it and let that material sit on the surface of the soil and give you some functionality that way, or you're going to decide if you're going to harvest it as a forage. It's valuable both ways. Either way, it's valuable to the farmer. It's a little more tangible to put a value to it as a forage because you turn it directly into feed. It's a little harder to put a value on it when you're leaving it as mulch on the soil. So anyway, in this particular field, we were looking at the density of the crop and trying to decide that the dry matter yield was going to be enough to justify waiting and cutting and harvesting this crop. And ultimately, we decided it was. And I'll say that this looks drastically better than it did even a week ago. You can tell, if you look on like the borders of the field, you can see where the manure didn't get applied in the fall. And so you can see nitrogen differences here now. But this field has had plenty of nitrogen to yield well. So I think the yield and the quality will be good of this forage.
And like you said, it was good to let this ride because there was a little bit of angst, and then not just with this farmer, but we had a lot of calls where people were getting anxious of like, can I afford to wait? I need to make a decision. I don't know what to do with this stuff. It's a little skimpy, but.
So what went into this decision was, number one, does the farmer need forage? Can he utilize it and put that value to it? And that answer was yes. So we checked off that box. And then the next question was, okay, he can use the forage, but what's the subsequent crop going to be? What's following this? Can he afford to push planting back a few more weeks while waiting to cut this? And the answer there was yes also, because in this case he's planting soybeans.
Yep.
And he already had selected a shorter maturity bean. So he's already positioned to do it. So the way I viewed it was he needs the forage, and he's not really going to sacrifice anything from what he already was going to, from what his yield potential was already because he's planting soybeans and because of the maturity he's using. So in this instance, it was sort of a no-brainer. Maybe on some more marginal fields across the land, it's a little harder of a decision, especially if you're planting corn after rye. But we've seen more and more farmers becoming comfortable with that as well. Planting green has become a big thing. It's taken off in our area. I think you've probably seen a lot of farmers doing that. And in that instance, like if you're going to plant corn in here, you no-till it in to the green field and terminate it sometime after planting.
So that was going to be the next question. Is one caller had concern of, I feel like if I plant that corn in here, will it be zapping moisture away in these low precipitous times that we're having? So does that mean he has to terminate that like either right before or right after planting, or does he have a window of flexibility? So
the question of the cover crop robbing moisture from the main crop, in this case corn, is not in the years of tracking that we've done soil temperature and moisture in cover crops, it's not a worry. In fact, it's maybe even counterintuitive. It's the other way around, where if we become moisture limited, and this, I don't know how much rain you guys got here, but
barely a tenth.
Okay, so it's gonna do nothing to catch us up with moisture. It looks nice and it's good for the seeds that are in the ground. It's helping out that way, but it's gonna do nothing to catch us up for the season. It's not setting us up
for July.
It's not helping us avoid the potential of a dry stretch, not to be a downer, but that is even more of a reason to leave this residue on the surface. So that should also weigh into our decisions. If a farmer says, I might be in pretty good shape with forage and I might not need that, then I would say, well, then maybe you are better off terminating that stuff and leaving it on the field, because the moisture under this all summer long is going to be greater than where there isn't this much mulch.
Just because there's so much cover and there's not that evaporation factor.
You're cutting down solar radiation. It's shielding the soil, and it's maintaining moisture in the soil.
Fascinating.
So
interesting. Well, good deal.
The one other thing, and I know you called me about that second example farmer that you talked about, and one of the concerns is when you plant green into a crop like this, corn, what about nitrogen, or what about fertility or nutrients?
Yeah.
So we could have a long conversation on that, and to a large extent the jury is still out on how much someone should adjust their nutrients after a crop like this. And a lot of people who are doing this, their goal is to eventually decrease nutrient inputs. But what I say is, if someone hasn't worked diligently for several years getting their soil functionality and their soil health up to where they've sort of earned that right to start backing off on nutrients, don't make the mistake of shorting your corn in this scenario. So basically what I would say is, if it's your first or second time doing something like this, no-tilling corn into this, give it the full spectrum of nutrients that you would even in a conventional setting, because you don't want to short it, and you don't want to be sacrificing yield, which is going to ultimately look like a failure on your part, and you might not ever do it again. So basically what I'm saying is, when you start out planting green into a winter cereal like this, don't back off on nutrients until you get a little more comfortable with that system.
Yeah, so you can collect some data yourself, make those observations till you make that next step.
And on the other side of the coin, don't be afraid of this crop stealing nutrients or tying up nutrients from your corn crop, as long as you're giving it as long as you're giving it the full rate. And then the other thing that I say is, you might, if you're split applying that nitrogen, you might need to change it up just a little bit, because what what we've seen most farmers in this area have the most luck with is get at least 50% of the nitrogen on at planting time when you're planting into something like
So
this.
get half of what you need for nitrogen right there and then.
Right.
So like a 28 2x2 scenario with a starter.
Yep.
Gotcha.
And then, you know, the other thing is this is intimidating to some people, but you don't have to, like when you're planting green into this, how long do you have typically before that corn comes out of the ground? 10 to 14 days in some cases. I guess.
Some cases.
And as the soil warms up, maybe it's as short as 7 to 8 days.
I was to say 5 to 7 days if you planted like mid-May and then we had these kind of conditions, then it goes a little faster.
So then basically you have minimum of 7 days to get this sprayed. So it's not like you have to spray it beforehand. It's not like it has to be dying before you plant it. It's not like you have to spray it the second the corn planter pulls out of the field, or the bean planter, or whatever you're planting. So
now, before we wrap up, somebody is watching this, and this will be a question that this was another question that was posed to us. Do I need to assume I'm going to have insect predation heavier in a system like this?
No.
Another hot take.
Have we seen it? Yes, but it's not necessarily because of the cover crop. In fact, if you look at this, if you no-till into here and then kill it, you're still going to have more upright plants than you are flat plants in a field like this. And when you have more upright plants, you don't have a very good environment for a lot of bugs. It still goes back to kind of the age-old principles of crop rotation. As long as you're rotating crops, that's the biggest way to avoid pest issues. So I guess the answer to your question is, doing this does not automatically mean that you need to be on the lookout for or be paranoid.
The rye itself is not doing it. It's going to be
Right.
more dictated by the fact of what has your rotations been. Like if it's
Right.
corn on corn, then that itself is probably why you should worry.
Exactly.
I get it. All right, anything else you'd like to wrap up with?
No, I just think that this is a practice that we hope to see more on the land, and I think it's one that more people are getting comfortable with. And it's one that when someone tries it for the first time, regardless of how it works out, they should just keep trying it, because everyone kind of has to figure out how exactly to fit it into their system.
Absolutely. Well said. All right, well, thank you for watching this video. If you can dig all the messages getting passed on here, why don't you hit the little like button there down at the bottom. Share it with your farmer or non-farmer friends.
Right.
We're not discriminant.
Right.
So, cool. All right, thanks. That went well. So good.